All right, we have some breaking news. For the first time in 7 years, the U.S. Capitol is now closed. The federal government shut down at 12:01 this morning, leaving thousands of jobs, services, and paychecks in a cloud of uncertainty. Lawmakers were not able to come to an agreement, leading to a lapse in funding.
And as the clock ticked past midnight, federal agencies stopped receiving money. That means some 750,000 workers could be furloughed. Others will have to work without pay. We have live team coverage for you this morning with how the federal shutdown is already trickling down to our region.
But let's kick things off with Jessica Riley joining us live from inside Pittsburgh International Airport. Good morning to you, Jessica.
Good morning, David and Erica. Yeah, one thing we could see really impacted by that shutdown are airports. When we think of air traffic controllers and TSA agents, they are essential government workers, essentially meaning they have to work through this and they're not being paid right now. But we know that this happened in the past, and we did see with staffing issues when they arise, that started to create those delays and those cancellations that could start to see if this shutdown persists. But we have 58,000 TSA employees that work around the country and 13,000 air traffic controllers. All of them are currently working on the job with no pay. Air traffic control employment numbers are already down as it is. This shutdown would put a freeze on hiring and training, furthering those numbers. It's important to remember, though, that these impacts would be seen if the shutdown persists for weeks, not days. The Department of Transportation said more than 11,000 FAA workers would be furloughed. That's about a quarter of the workforce. Those jobs include support staff and non-safety roles. Critical safety operations like air traffic control, hiring and training would continue. Now, we saw this back in 2018 during a 35-day shutdown. After just one missed paycheck, TSA officers across the country began calling off sick. That led to longer lines at security checkpoints and in some cases entire checkpoints or even terminals being shut down because there wasn't enough staff to cover them. And the U.S. Travel Association estimates that $1 billion week by week could be lost and impacted by the U.S. travel economy if this government shutdown persists and we start to see those issues arrive. Live at the Pittsburgh International Airport, Jessica Riley, back to you.
All right, Jessica, thanks so much. And we are monitoring stock futures before the opening bell. And now that the federal government is closed for business, a look at the conditions right now. A lot of red on your screen. Things are trending downward. Of course, we'll continue to monitor those numbers for you. Opening bell is at 9:30. But lawmakers, of course, are not off the job. Today, they'll try again to pass a spending bill to reopen the government. But it's the same one that has already failed in the Senate.
Republicans and Democrats are now both blaming each other for not getting enough votes. Megan Shin continues our live team coverage this morning here in the studio. And Megan, the House Speaker says that right now there's nothing to negotiate. Maybe that gives us a glance at what could happen today.
Yeah, that's right, Erica and David. The federal government started the partial shutdown at 12:01 this morning, and lawmakers failed to find common ground, and sounds like they might not even in the future. Well, it leads us here to the first lapse in funding since the end of 2018, and the Republican-controlled House passed a GOP bill to extend the current spending levels for 7 weeks, but it failed to pass in the Senate. Democrats are pushing for the extension of health care subsidies for millions of Americans under the Affordable Care Act, set to expire at the end of the calendar year. Lawmakers will meet again with pressure rising even more.
If they want support from the Democratic side, for God's sake, sit down and let's talk it over at the table as soon as possible. There are plenty of tables in this Capitol for this purpose. We can do it.
There literally is nothing to negotiate. They're bringing in extraneous issues that don't have anything to do at all with keeping the government open. And we've said, you do your first job, keep the government open, and then we'll talk about the rest of it.
Now, funding's lapsed at nearly every agency and department, and it means federal agencies start their first full day of shutdown procedures, keeping hundreds of thousands of workers at home on furlough. And let's not forget, some federal employees could go to work without pay or face potential layoffs, but lawmakers themselves will still get a paycheck. Like everywhere in America, we're feeling the impact in the state of Pennsylvania. Governor Josh Shapiro explained how our state is poised for the shutdown. For some counties and state agencies, it feels like a double gut punch. crunch as state leaders grapple with the state budget impasse. In our state alone, we're talking about paychecks for more than 100,000 government employees. That's according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And Governor Shapiro says the state government is still open for business. Citizens can still get help at agencies like the Department of Education and the Department of Human Services. On the federal level, services like Medicare and Medicaid are still available right now. David and Erica, back to you.
All right, Megan, thanks so much. And as the government's operation status remains in flux, stay with KDKA. We'll have more live coverage throughout the morning, and you can also always find updates at cbsnews.com.